it's two things. On one side, you know, there've been since the rejection of the first one, there have been a lot of calls, especially among civil society, and and one of the organizations that have been leading, perhaps, Marnyang's Gambia Participate. There have been quite a lot of conversation on how to bring back the constitution and all that. But the second issue was also how do we come about that process? Do we go to the National Assembly, or the executive has to also come up with their own draft? I think for me, one of the questions that was answered basically was that there's a need. There's definitely a need, an urgency for us to have a constitution, but also, what kind of mechanism or process that we need to follow to reintroduce the draft constitution. I think those questions were not really tackled. And so when I saw the draft, I mean, of course, if there was no consultation, because it shows that we have moved from a process or a stage of the development to something that has been basically delivered by a particular group or small group of individuals. And for me, that's, like when people talk about the document and all that, for me, that is very important. But for me, my interest is usually on the process because, as we all know, I mean, we are not making a constitution for anybody. We are making a constitution for all of us. And so we are making constitution for the Gambia. And therefore, the process of bringing Gambians on board and be part of that process, for me, that is what is very central in terms of this constitution making process. And so today, people will compare two things. They will compare what the process of bringing about the draft 2020 that was rejected, which everybody agreed that it was very consultative, it was very engaging. The constitutional process used a very scientific, broad-based methodology to engage with the community. But also at the end of their engagement, they came out with a report, whether you agree or disagree with their the final draft that they presented. They came up with justification and reason why they did those kind of stuff. And so you compare that to what we have right now. One, it answers the aspiration of the people. Of course, people wanted a constitution, so therefore we'll just give them a constitution, but doesn't address basically, carrying along the voices of the people. Because recently we had a national dialogue, and the issue of a constitutional process came about, and there were quite a conversations around that process. And then now you just come up, you release a document, and people don't see themselves in it. And I think that's the biggest challenge now, the biggest question that we have to address. And for me, is the responsibility of government also to see how best we can make people to be part of the process. But otherwise, like it is, most of the comments, most of the engagements that I see is more of disappointment. But at the end of the day, what I also say is that a document, whatever it is, a draft, is also an opportunity. This one comes from the cabinet, but it is going to the people's representative, the National Assembly. But of course, there also people people already know is already politically charged, so it might not go through. So at the end of the day, is it that we are creating a constitution for the people of the Gambia, or are we creating a constitution just to tick some sort of a box? Because recently the government is really under pressure, both from the donor community but also from ECOWAS, and everybody has seen that. And of course, there is also that internal pressure that is also coming from the need to have a constitution. And so for me, it's just like, let's just answer their question and then present something without necessarily capturing or factoring what the people's reactions or what people will really think about those issues. And I think currently this is where the debate is. But I think for me still, as long as there's something that is presented, it's either the people can pick it up and say, well, this is our document, we have to protect it and engage in the process, or we can just let politics or just allowed to be distracted, because even the current document as it is a source of distraction for most of us. But what is the commitment then in terms of this aspiration that we all shared, that led to the change, ending self-perpetuating rule, but strengthening our democratic and governance processes, ensuring accountability, ensuring that the exclusive or the powers of the president is also executive is also checked. But what we also have, and listening to, I haven't gone through the entire document, but so far I am following comments and commentaries, especially from legal experts, and also looking at the document in terms of what has been changed. You start asking yourself, I mean, is this the dream or the aspiration that we have from 2016 coming to now? Or is it that, something that is even in certain instances is even pushing us back to even before 1997? So there are those questions that, I think, like Serian was saying, it's important that we focus on the document, but we also must talk about processes and see how, because constitutional making is about that as well. And usually people tend to forget that. But how do we bring everybody online, as part of the process? I think this current draft has not been able to answer that. And I think for me, this is where the current conversation is. But I think definitely to know that you need 75%, you need 75% outside, with 50% turnout, and you decided to just, meet and come up with a draft without consulting people prior to that, or even the political actors, or even clearly to tell us that these were the controversial issues before, and this is what has been addressed. I mean, so those are things that, are still part of the issues that I hear about this process. And I think for me, that is the dangerous part. And that's the first lesson that I'm saying. And that's what I'm learning right now.
So, so it looks like, Sait Matty, listening to you, I mean, this thing is dead on arrival. Obviously, the process is already compromised, how it was rolled out. I mean, I don't think they can go back and fix that. It is what it is. Does that tell us that maybe all along?
Well, I mean, yeah. No, sorry, the network. I didn't get that. I mean, so I wouldn't just, for me, I'm still, I wouldn't just say that it's there on arrival. I usually have this optimistic feeling, but until the last part. But the question for me is that, is the question of whether the document could be safe, and how can it be safe? And as it is right now, is a document that has to be really negotiated. Before, everybody was saying, we're looking at it from a political lens, that it has to be negotiated. Even among our civil society, I think the conversation was, I mean, mostly what the Constitutional Review Commission did was mostly captured what people aspired or people wanted, and some of the issues that people disagreed were mostly from a political, were seen mostly from a political lens. But what currently is happening with this current draft is no longer about party grouping or anything. It basically kind of affect the broad social setup, in terms of even local governance, in terms of many other aspects. We people wanted to see more power, because the 1997 Constitution talk about decentralization that gives, development must be accessed through decentralization. And even now, that's what people are demanding. But you come and basically, as some will say, bastardize that whole section. Even then, implementation or creating those kind of institutions or replacing those institutions are also critical, that we also need to factor. So I mean, like being me myself, being Sait Matty, knowing that I am one person, one vote, and my role within civil society. I mean, it's not to discourage people, but to say, to ask people perhaps whether we can reflect on the possibility of an opportunity. And this is not about parliament anymore. This is about a constitution that is presented to the people, and how the people are going to respond to this is also very, very important, because eventually, I mean, our parliamentarians are there for the people. And so how do we engage in all those different processes I think these are questions that civil society has to ask itself, but also political actors and everybody else. So for me, currently as it is today, if it was voted, I don't see people agreeing on it. But I think since we have 3 months or some other days, and eventually after, there's possibility. There's a possibility perhaps to fix the document.
Sarian.
All right, Mr. Jau. Mr. Jau, and thank you very much for highlighting. I think this comes to be about the document per se. And I know the processes that need to enlighten. But I think from your vantage point, I mean, there's areas that actually the work that you did in the past has impacted. And then my question to you is, since the government had a plan or intention to reintroduce this new drug, was there any consultation, for that matter, from the Ministry of Justice or folks within his office to work with your organization in areas of highlighting some of the, because you interface with the community and the voters at every onset. You travel extensively around the country. What are some of the steps that they did before? Were you aware of some of these changes or not?
Well, what I was aware of is that if you look at the National Development Plan, that government wanted to bring back the Constitution. That was very clear from the National Development Plan, from some of the policy statements and pronouncements that they have made. That was very clear. And also very recently, I think during the press conference, organized by the Ministry of Information, that's when I even also know that they were gonna gazette this draft by mid-month. But even also around that period, also we know at some point it was announced that cabinet was also going to sit on the draft constitution, and of course we also saw the information ministry sharing that. So for me, the only consultations that I've attended, I think, like I mentioned in the beginning, was those that were facilitated by Gambia Participate Marnyang's organization. Because like I said, civil society's role was also to help keep the momentum, so that we will not just, we are now talking about 4 years since it was introduced, but to ensure that government keep to its word, keep to its promise, and then reintroduce it. But to sit over the document, to discuss it, to discuss what was deleted, what was added, what was not. I've not attended any such forum. I haven't heard of seeing any civil society member that also attended any such forum. And for me, I think this just comes from the cabinet meeting, and then it is gazetted and it is coming. It is presented to us. Maybe for them, this is where we should be consulted. Now, well, we have drafted, and so now you are being consulted. But in the process of getting this current draft, I'm not aware, and I wouldn't participated in one that talks about that. But also during the national dialogue, I mean, because I was, I think I facilitated the conversation with the political actors and institutions among civil society. And one of the recommendations also within that process was to bring this constitution back. Because in this country, you realize, and every time I argue that, most of our problems, sometimes we just limit it to individuals, but it's a structural problem in the sense that, we have all these colonial laws. Gambia has not been able to reform and revive itself, do all those sort of stuff. And so that's why it is important that we start focusing on this constitution to enlarge the space, ensure that, people can, there's issues of accountability and people can participate. So during those different conversation on convergence, the issue of the constitution keep coming up. But bring back the constitution, bring back the constitution. But like I was saying, the process or how, and sometimes I raise this, but for us, sometimes we are seen too academic, because sometimes you need to question that, like the how mechanism. And sometimes I wanted to see if Madi was coming here, because his proposal has been on creating citizen assemblies. But the other option has been also to, perhaps look at what the CRC has said and then follow that process and, send back the issue to to the Constitution. And I think during even the national dialogue, our recommendation was just to resubmit the draft as it was. So that's why I said, if this draft come up like this, and then you see the initial reaction, it shows that people are saying, well, this is not our document, it's somebody else's document, but we have to look at it, and I think that's what we have to do at this minute.
Okay, thank you. So what is the process though, as far as the MOJ intends to submit this draft, and from here, how does the process go until start to finish? Well, if you could enlighten us a little bit.
In my layman understanding, I'm not I'm interested in the process, but I'm not. But my understanding is that from here, it's gazetted now, as per the constitutional requirement. So it will last from the 14th of August to, it should take like 100 days, 3 months and 10 days, and then it will get to Parliament. And in that, then Parliament will have first reading, and I think the second reading, where also they'll have to discuss the merits and principles of the bill. If you remember last time, that's where the bill, ended. So if it succeeds, if it gets the 75%, or 2/3 majority, I think. Please, if I'm getting it wrong, people that understand it better could explain it. Then it moves to the committee stage, and where in the committee stage there could be that possibility of consultation. And I remember during the 2020 draft, I was hired by the UNDP as a consultant to draft, a strategy in terms of the consultations within the committee process, and how the committee will engage with different stakeholders along those period, because there was that whole support in terms of that. So when it get to that stage, I think there will be a conversation around it, and if it passed consideration stage, and then eventually it has to be voted again on the third reading. And this time also it also requires 75% support. And if we get the 75% support, I think then the question, referendum question might be drafted and then to the IEC, where then a date for the referendum will be set. But the referendum itself also will require 75% support out of a total turnout of 50% of the registered voters. So this shows that the entire process, it requires like a majority support. It's very, very, very strong support. At least it needs 8 out of 10 Gambians to support almost every process, before it gets through. So it shows that also, for me, constitutional making is a peace building mechanism, where we are coming from a transitional process. We're talking about reconciliation. We're talking about that. This should have been an opportunity where Gambians sit around and then negotiate all these different issues. At least starting from cabinet consultation with the wider public, then subsequently, for the consultation at the National Assembly. And if people disagree, everyone is your vote. If you want to support, you support. If you don't want to support, you can vote against it. For me, but the most important part is along the process, are people informed enough about what their rights and responsibilities are along the way, but also what is the broader agenda. Those are things that we need to also focus. But for me, I think in my simple understanding, this should be the process.